Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amy Wolf. I'm the programming coordinator for the Osterville Village Library. Thank you so much for being with us today. And to our friends joining us on Zoom, thank you so much for being here as well. Today, we have the honor of hosting an author talk with local author Thom Barrett. We are going to hear firsthand how Thom's adventures, from chasing the Northern Lights to building homes with Habitat for Humanity, intertwine with his powerful story of living with cancer. His first book, Living While Dying, shows us how to embrace life's challenges with courage and zest. Without further ado, here's Thom Barrett.
Amazing to see so many familiar faces. I expected to see strangers galore here. So now I'm a little on edge in terms, I gotta play my A game here, right? So, yeah, that's a tough one. It's a tough one. I want to thank you for coming. We all have choices, right? And suspect that talking about cancer is not high up there in the list of things to do on a Saturday afternoon. But I have to tell you, I have to thank you for being here, because this morning when I got out of bed, the last thing I wanted to do today was come over here and give a speech. I was feeling like crap, excuse my language. It was one of those bad days, and we have bad days, right? It is season. I unfortunately have a little more than I have in the past, but it's acceptable. But the fact that I knew I had to come, I mean, I had to get out of bed and make that step forward. And for me, that is critical, because living with intention is what I do now. And you're showing up here is, thank you very much, because it means a lot to me, all right, in terms of being able to have this conversation. Now, we have a small group here, and those people here know me very well, that I prefer dialogue, which means communication back and forth, not monologue, me getting up here and giving a lecture. I can, I can talk with the best of them, but I think it's better if we all are sharing what you expect, what I expect, and what's here. I used to tell people I've worked with that any meeting you go to, there's always three objectives, right? Three objectives. There's a purpose of the meeting that we both agree to, i.e., we're going to talk about living with intention. And then there's your own objectives. So why you're getting out of bed and coming here driving through the snow. I have my own objectives, meaning you all, right? And then I have my objectives, reason why I'm here. I've already explained what my objective is, and you help me get out of bed, which is a great thing, right? And I also am very keen on raising awareness and providing some perspectives on how you can have this duality between have one foot close to the grave and one foot enjoying life. All right. So I have to ask you, what was your objective for coming today? Yeah. I'm going to put you in the spot. What was your objective in coming to listen to me?
Me?
Yeah. That's Brian.
I want to come and listen to what you have to say and listen to your journey and everybody else.
Good. All right. Brian, how about you?
You know something? Other than the obvious reconnections,
Yep.
interest in what you're doing, I really, there's a couple of things I saw in your bio, one of which was getting out of bed and getting started, taking that step towards doing something meaningful when you could just sit on the couch.
Right.
And I don't have cancer to my knowledge, you never know. But depression, anxiety, life, there's a lot of things that go on that you could sit and have a pity party on the couch and worry about. Guess I'm fortunate that I don't know right now if I have anything. And the other thing that really caught my eye was you talked about being in meetings with Price Waterhouse. You had one partner in a project who was an English major, and you used to write the report based upon what was being done and the importance of whatever your solutions for the client were, and his was everything had to be spelled correctly, grammatically perfect, equal 100 hours. I thought that was kind of funny, but you probably did it. And it's probably helped you in some way keeping sight of the important things for other people, not just yourself.
Yeah.
As you go on this journey.
Yeah, that's a good, and there's people over here chuckling because those people are in the same room.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And you're absolutely right. It was an interesting time. And at that time, I had no clue that I could write. I thought I was a good writer then, but every time I went to that meeting, I was informed that you aren't. You actually stink. But anyway, that's beside the point. Anyhow, so we're here to talk. And besides the following up with someone, what's your practice here?
Well, I'm a cancer survivor, but my son is starting his journey with cancer.
Right.
And I just want to be able to be there and support him and
That's great. And that's gonna be critical, all right, because we're gonna talk about that. So the reason why I asked is that it's helpful for me so I can make my presentation on point to what you are looking for. Because I can talk about anything, right? I can talk about a lot of different stuff, but if it's not reaching what you want, then the time you're spending here is not as valuable or it's not being used as well as you would like. And I want to make certain that takes place. So I'm going to talk mostly about what drives someone to get out of bed, right? And I will talk about how the woman in the men who have prostate cancer's lives are terribly important. And they're important for the following reason. Guys stink in terms of communication. We don't do a good job at that, right? We don't share about what's going on with us. We don't, we think that being stoic and manly means, you know, just getting up and doing your thing and not complaining about it, despite what's going on. And that's not healthy. I mean, it's obviously not healthy, but it's not healthy because in the beginning, when you really may not have those symptoms, but are suffering from something, right? We too often will just suck it up, buttercup, right? And not go to the doctors and have that PSA test or that whatever tests I should be doing at this age, right? And because there's a reason why the doctors have said at 40, start colonoscopies, at 55, start doing this. You know, there's a reason why these things are being done, so we can be proactive, not reactive. And so hopefully, and then the other part of this is ask questions, because if you've got a specific question about anything, I'm gonna try and be as helpful as I can. There's no questions that are off the table, at least none that I've experienced to date. Today may be the first ones, but I think I'm pretty good with going with the flow in terms of that. So my life before, what happened when I was diagnosed, and what am I doing in terms of how am I altering my reality or how am I adapting to this new reality? When I was working at PwC, I was pretty fortunate. I mean, I'm excited that I lived during the 70s, 80s, and 90s, right? Because that's when technology really became, the touch point between business and technology was occurring, all right? Of course, big old fat mainframes were the thing, but I was there. I was there at the beginning and I watched the evolution of technology for 30 years. And I'm pleased that I was able to do that. And it appealed to me in terms of my intellect of challenging me, trying to take things that people didn't understand and apply it in ways that they could understand, right? That's what I did for 32 years. And it's exciting. But at the same time,
was good.
sorry?
And the music was good.
Music was, the music couldn't get any better, right? That's all I listen to now. Sorry. But then somewhere in the 90s, I realized that there's more to life. I realized that there is more than just taking your kids to soccer camp and doing let's go to Nantucket or wherever we go for vacations, right? That I wanted to engage more in pushing my own boundaries, physically, mentally, emotionally. And I started to do what my colleagues at work, that crazy shit. You know, I didn't just go backcountry skiing. I went and skied from Chamonix to Zermatt, right? Crossing 26 different peaks with axes and ropes and all kinds of gear, right? Not your normal activity. Or I'd go kayaking in remote sections of Prince William Sound or up to the Arctic or wherever. And I loved it. I really did. I loved it so much that I said, very early on in my career, I'm retiring at 55 and I don't care what's going on with me professionally, all right? If I haven't made enough money, I haven't made enough money. If I have, that's even better. And so I retired at 55. And I stand here now and say, boy, am I lucky I did that. Because at age 60, I was diagnosed with cancer. And whilst I did a lot of good things between 2012 and 2015, I did a lot of activities. When I first retired, the first thing I did was I spent 3 months going to school at a school called the National Outdoor Leadership School. And they're like an outward bound kind of thing. And so I did that for 3 months where I moved, I literally was in a tent for 3 months, but in different venues. And the shocker was, I was there with 9 other people whose average age was 18. It was like, when I first went, okay, this is not gonna be fun. I have no idea what South Park is, and I have no idea who we're gonna have the conversations, right? I don't wanna be their dad or grandpa, depending on the age, right? But those 3 months were interesting. I learned an awful lot. I learned an awful lot. And I learned that I love the outdoors. I confirmed that is a space that is not just you have to go there to do surfing, or you have to go there to do this. I go there because of that, and the surfing is a byproduct, or the kayak is a byproduct. For me, the nature is my church. And I get a lot of satisfaction from that. All right, so first mistake, no glasses. This is a tough part about being older, huh? There it's slide 4, good. So one of the things I happened to have before I experienced my prostate cancer was that I had cancer before. I had colon cancer, I had skin cancer. And I found those because I did the tests, right? Yeah, did the test, had a colonoscopy, yeah, we got polyps, there's cancerous, we removed it. And so I had this mindset, I could figure shit out and we're gonna solve it. And so when I got my diagnosis in 2015, I wasn't concerned at all. I said, okay, prostate, okay, I don't need it, remove it, right? Just like I removed the polyps, and we can take care of it. And so we did. And in 2016, I had my prostate removed, and I jumped back into my adventures, which I did many of. And for 3 years, it was great. Didn't feel bad, was doing my thing. And then I come back for my annual checkup and realize like those things that indicate whether or not you've got cancer functioning were rising. Now, what's interesting is that the thing that they're using to measure is called PSA. Don't ask me what it stands for, but it's a marker, right? Prostate cells, not cancer cells, but prostate cells emit an enzyme that is measurable, all right? And normally, your prostate doesn't change, this stays flat. 4, 4, 4, 10, 10, 10, 20, 20, 20, whatever that's, right? It's when it changes, and not like this, but like this, there's cause for concern. But it doesn't mean if you have a high PSA that you have cancer. What it means is that you have a lot of prostate cells. Now, how could that be? Well, maybe you have an enlarged prostate. Okay, that's not cancer, that's just the fact that it's inflamed, there's other procedures to correct it. And so when you do PSA screening and see your rise, don't immediately jump to, oh, I got cancer. It's like, maybe it's something else, like just having my prostate checked, make sure it's not enlarged, right? Or for me, when I first had my test, I biked a lot, right? And biking, because everything's in that same general area, creates some activity that causes your prostate cells to do what it do is create some more enzymes. And again, another false positive, right? But anyhow, after my treatments, I had 38 radiation treatments, ADT in terms of androgen deprivation, where they cut out the testosterone. I began doing well. I went back out, a little fatigued because of the ADT, but it was bearable. But then in 23, when I came back from another trip, again doing my other thing, that's when we realized it was stage 4. I made a choice at that point in time. I said, quality of life is more important to me than quantity of life. I feel okay. and I took no treatments. Figured, you know, I feel good and I have more things I wanna do, and this is when I decided to go down to Antarctica, to do my trips down there, go up to South America. And do my thing, but unfortunately. I had a problem when I was down in Bolivia, I didn't do my homework. Didn't realize we were gonna be at 19,000 feet. And I didn't realize the impact it'd have on me. I suffered from hate and AMS, which hate is bad. It means you've got fluids are starting to collect in your lungs, right? And you've got to get back down to sea level as quickly as possible, or else it's bad news. Unfortunately, we were 7 hours away from any medical facilities. We were in the desert of Bolivia. And obviously got things at the right time, but when I came home, I went through the whole battery test again, and this is when we found out that the cancer now had moved up to my chest, and it was now around my lungs and around my spinal column. And we also found out that we had a tumor here, and that the fluid in the lungs was a bad thing. I couldn't get it out, so I got chronic bronchitis. So I had all these issues going on concurrently. And then I said to myself, I said, well, I need to do something now, because I can't figure out my symptoms. Are they associated with this or that in terms of all these different things going on? So I started my treatment. And that was a game changer, right? When I realized that I was stage 4, the notion of recovery no longer existed, because we're not going to recover. This is it. Right, it's now a matter of how do I control and live with, and that mindset change is not easy. It wasn't for me, right? It wasn't for me. The fact that 1 in 10 men who have prostate diagnosis are stage 4. I'm fortunate. I'm one of those 10%. I'm a lucky guy. I get a chance to have a survival rate of making it to 28, 30%. During my second round of my treatments in December of this past year, I sat across from my oncologist as he's giving my injection. I said, okay, so how many more injections do I have? He goes, what do you mean? I said, well, how many more? I mean, like, you know, it's got to be an endpoint for this, right? It's going to get better. He goes, yeah, no, this is it. Or the time that you'll stop the injections is when the cancer becomes too strong and the injections are no longer working. So I said, so this is the best I'm going to feel? He goes, yeah, this is the best you're going to feel, because everything else now, because we're going to add more treatments, it's just going to be worse. And so that's the moment that I realized I got to live with intent. I have to think of something that gives me purpose to get out of bed, right? To put that foot in front of the other. Because feeling like this is not a good place to be, right? It's not a good place to be. I mean, the impact here is not just the frustration of not getting out of bed, it's relationships with people, right? Not having it because I'm in bed, right? It's the fact that I can't get out and do the things I wanted to do. I haven't accepted my limitations, right? And so I had to go through a process of understanding what that meant to me. And what it meant to me is that there's a 50% chance I'll make it the next year. Think of that. 50% chance I'll make it the next year. Now, am I feeling bad about that? No, that's a fact. Right? Like 1 and 1 equals 2. To me, so maybe I'm certain in 2025 is going to be as productive as I can. And I have a 30% chance of surviving to 28. Right? So I'm not giving you these facts to make you feel bad about me. I'm not asking for any pity here. That's not my point. My point is that life has to go on. And I have a choice. Right? And this is to your question, Mike. I have a choice. I can go lay down, or I can get up and do something. And those around here know me, I like to do things. So I had to change my reality. I had to adapt to a different reality, right? I'm not gonna be able to go and climb mountains. I'm not gonna be able to go kayaking for 3 weeks by myself anymore. So I have to choose what truly matters to me. I have to go through and let go what no longer serves me. And that means people, that means activities. I mean, I've got siblings I don't talk to because of the toxic nature of when we get together, right? You know, you're a family of 6 and you're growing up, you know, stuff happens, right? And everyone falls back into those same roles, no matter how old you are, right? It's amazing, but sometimes it's not that positive, right? And so I gotta be focused on me. I mean, I know it's selfish, but I gotta be focused on me, and I have to feel good about it. I gotta feel good about what's going on, and having toxicity in my space doesn't work. So I don't feel it. Finding purpose. Purpose. I have a friend of mine who is the same year as I am in terms of, he went to BC. But he's 2 years ahead of me in terms of his journey for cancer. His tumors have metastasized into his bones. Not good. And the other day we're having a conversation and he goes, "No, I gotta tell you, I don't know what I want to do here. I don't want to get out of bed because it's too painful. I have no reason to get out of bed." And that's when we started talking about purpose, right? What's your purpose? What do you want to do? What, you've got limited time here, okay? What do you want to do? What do you want to lead? What do you want to encourage? And so we had a conversation about that. And it's important, because if you don't have purpose, forget about having an illness. If you're waking up every day and not excited about going to work, or you're not excited about what you're gonna be doing, right? You don't have purpose in that regard, then, kind of living, you're just existing, not really living. And then I realized I gotta do more. That's why I'm here. Strengthen the community, create some visibility, demonstrate my vulnerability by expressing what I'm going through. And stop waiting to feel better, right? Because I'm not. So for me, living with attention means keep traveling. I'm gonna keep traveling. I'm going to Scotland in May, and instead of hiking around the mountains in Scotland, we're taking a cruise and we're gonna visit all the islands, the Beatties, all the places you see in whatever those, A Hobbit or whatever those movies are that have those picturesque, gorgeous. I'm gonna go and see and hopefully walk, but I'm gonna go do it. And I'm gonna continue on doing, I'm doing prostate cancer awareness and make certain I'm focused with the right organizations to cause change. Because we're gonna find out that unfortunately, prostate cancer doesn't have the same attention as breast cancer. And I'm gonna say it right now, I am not advocating to take one money away from one to give to the other. That's not my point. My point is there's a disparity. And how do we create equality, right? And I'll talk about that in a second. As for me, and whoever thought this, writing is my safe space. I go down to my studio and I write, and I'm like in a different world, and I feel better for it. And the benefit that I'm sharing with others, I can only hope that they get something out of it. But like Brian said, and David said, we were talking earlier, if one person can read one of these books and give a call to their son-in-law or their son to say, "Hey, have you had a PSA checkup lately?" Then that's a win. That's my win. I don't know if that's gonna be your win, but it's my win, right? And that's why I'm here. Because we don't do it enough, and we don't. So I've stopped waiting for a better version of myself. And I'm letting go of toxic relationships, right? Now, this is what's interesting, and I find it hard to believe. So, all right, basic facts. Prostate cancer, who's affected? 288,000 men get diagnosed every single year with prostate cancer. 34,000 of them die. Great news is that if you find it early in the stage 1, stage 2 spaces, you have 100% survival rate. That's great. And we need to identify, because what's happening is, because we don't have the level of promotion, the level of awareness, that men are finding it late, stage 3 to stage 4. And then all of a sudden, now they're into survival rate drops, right? Now, here's the interesting part. Oh, before I do this, I gotta ask a question. So, when you think of breast cancer, what do you think of? I don't mean but what's the type of person that you think is incurring breast cancer versus prostate cancer? Gender aside, I know, but when you think of breast cancer, what do you think?
What are you referring to, the age or?
Well, I'm trying, that's the age, right? Is it a youthful? Is it an old? Is it?
It's getting younger, sadly.
Okay. Well, I have learned, or I've thought I learned, that most people think of breast cancer as being a young woman's disease, and prostate cancer is being an old man's disease, right? We all hear, oh yeah, my grandpa had that, right? Or my dad is, and I'm an old man, right? There's always someone older who has it, and therefore they're old. No offense, Paul, don't mean to say that to you, but, it happens at that late stage. Unfortunately, am I going the wrong direction? Yeah, unfortunately, all right, where are we going? Sorry. Oh my God, where did it go this?
We just,
We'll come back to here. So unfortunately, the amount of deaths associated with breast cancer and prostate cancer are not dissimilar, right? It's 34,000, 43,000, 388, 297. And the interesting part is the funding. Funding of 580 million for breast cancer and 280 for prostate cancer. Yet impact's the same. The impact's the same, right? In terms of, it's an old, they're both suffering from it, right? The key here, age, that's what I was looking for, age of diagnosis, 62 and 66. That doesn't sound like a young disease to me, right? Doesn't sound like a young disease. And the fact is that for females that are over 50, 6.2% of females over 50 have breast cancer. 5.4% of the men over 50 have prostate cancer. That to me, again, shows that, wait a minute, this affects everybody. There's no young disease versus old disease, right? Sorry. One of the things that I find, I'm screwing up here because top me is going back forward and I'm going backwards. But what do I want to say here? All right. The difference between prostate and breast cancer, we've seen that they're in the same age group. What we don't see is that back in the 1970s, when the Cancer Act came out, that the females, I mean, it sounds that way, but that was during the time of Gloria Steinem, the time of civil unrest. It was a time when feminism was coming to full bore, and they made a point of really collaborating and getting a lot of people around this notion of breast cancer, and they were successful. The conversation we're having today about pre-screening for prostate cancer and whether we should be doing that was the same conversation that was being held for breast cancer back in the 1970s. And yet, after all that dialogue, they created a program and standards for when you have your mammograms, right? There's no question anymore. I mean, you had it at these points in time. We're still debating that from prostate cancer side as to whether or not we should be doing screening at all. I had a presentation the other day, young man, 74, raises his hand, says, I went to my primary care and I asked to have a PSA test, and my doctor said, why? I mean, why? I'm old and I might have it, right? And sure enough, he had it. Sure enough, he had the exam done and he has it, right? I have no idea what stage he was, but the point I'm trying to get across is that primary care is not pushing it. They're not making it mandatory age 50, like 55, right? Here's a guy 74 asking for it, and he was being challenged as to why he did that.
It's a good point, Tom.
And you're gonna see some other things here that's it's heartbreaking, right? But if you go and take a look at the awareness in the public, right? If I was wearing my blue band today and asked you what it was, I suspect no one knows what it meant, right? If I had my pink band on, if I raised it up, everyone, so yeah, that's breast cancer, right? 47% of men are aware that they should have PSA tests, right? It's not a good stat, whereas 92% or 88% of females do. It's a no-brainer for females, right? They know they need to do this. We don't. Only 40% of the eligible men will receive it, whereas 75% of females do. Now, this is the part that the amount of legislation that exists for one disease versus another is ridiculous. There are no legislations on record for prostate cancer. There's no requirement that Medicaid or insurance should cover it. There's no standards in terms of what to do with the PSA screening, unlike we do for breast cancer. Well, if we don't change that, we're gonna continue down the path of people being detected too late. Now, there's reasons why that exists, right? I'm just gonna go quickly through these things. I want to get to these points here. Misconceptions about prostate cancer are, it's not serious. Right? Old men get it. They're 85. My dad had it at 80. He had bladder cancer at 85. He went to the hospital because he had a UTI. He died because he had a staph infection, not because he suffered those other ones, right? It's crazy. But I, unfortunately, I wish I was 85, had the same problem. I'm not. Part of the problem, and it's the misconception that men are putting forth, right? Because we all look and say, okay, you can tell when someone's not feeling well, right? And you can tell because they vocalize what they're not feeling well, except for guys. We don't. We understand, we hide our symptoms, if there are any, and we keep it pretty much to ourselves. And the unfortunate part is that this disease affects not just the health, it affects the emotions, it affects the mental, right? I unfortunately had a wife at the time who didn't fully appreciate nor want to engage with helping me through this process, right? Her when she found out that I had prostate cancer, her look to me was like, "I'm sorry, you're damaged goods," you know, and it's like, really? When we said for better or for worse, this is the worst part, right? And we're supposed to kind of work together towards it. So having a partner is very important, is understanding. Having a partner who's willing to work with you, be supportive of you is important. And it's even more important when the man is not willing to talk about it, right? But that becomes very difficult. But it's something that has got to be talked about and attended to, because stoicism is not the right way to be acting. But again, guys don't know how to do any better. It affects the intimacy, it affects communication. And from a female's perspective, they don't know how to approach this because they've got a husband or a man who's always been the pillar, provider, right? He's always been, I'm strong, I can do this, but now he can't. And so what do you do to help? Men's response to this is pretty, you know, there's no surprise here. I usually have this thing titled "Men Are Idiots," but I didn't do that today. I realized there's gonna be a lot more guys here. But, you know, we're conditioned to hide our emotions, right? We're conditioned not to share because it's a view of weakness, right? We're vulnerable. And if we do something about it, do I have enough money for everyone to take? Have I created the right space, you know, financially, for everyone to be able, once I pass? I don't share anything about it, but I'm gonna make certain that I'm not leaving people in the lurch. I'm not leaving my wife, my kids, you know, so the focus on legacy is very important. But it doesn't help the individual. All right. I've done some talking. I need to ask you guys some questions so we can get this engaged a little bit better. So I ran through a lot of stuff. I have, believe it or not, another 40 slides, but we're not gonna go through them. But we can, in terms of any questions you have, I've got data support. So you asked a question earlier about what motivates one to get out of bed, even though they're not sick, but any insights yet, or do you want to talk about that a little more?
You know, something, it's getting your act together or providing yourself, the motivation has to come internally.
Right.
And cancer can be an external/internal motivator, but you don't know when you're gonna get cancer, sick, have a heart attack.
Right.
So I guess, you know, the emotions that I feel or the psychological difficulties I encounter are really not all that different from somebody that has a terminal or close to terminal disease. So my question is being answered with every slide, with every comment you make. I don't, it's like, it's not that dissimilar.
No, it's not.
Your journey is different. The goals.
The goals are there. I came back to this one, right? And maybe I should have spent a little more time on this one.
Yeah, see,
Exactly, exactly,
you're
right?
nailing it each time.
We're all on borrowed time, right? I mean, we all know we're gonna die. I mean, my first book was titled Living While Dying. Well, yeah, we're all doing that. This is not, you're not unique, Tom, and there was a reason why I selected that title. Because I'm not unique. We all are living while dying. It's who is seizing the opportunity? Who is taking advantage of every day and living it like it was their last day? You've heard the stories about that, but that changes your attitude completely. When I wake up in the morning, believe it or not, as much as I may be unwilling to get out of bed, I do sit in the edge of my bed and I will go through my gratitude. I will sit there and say, okay, I woke up. That's freaking great, right? That's freaking great. And I'm grateful that I have my house. I'm grateful this, and I go through my gratitudes, and all of a sudden, anyone here watching the Big C? No. Big C is a TV series with Laura Leonard. That's about
An
cancer.
old one, yeah, old.
Oh, yeah, it's old. I'm old. I just kept up with it, right?
No, it was popular 10 years
So,
ago.
all right, well, I'm slow to the game. I'm slow to the game.
Okay.
Nonetheless, so you're familiar with it.
But it was very good,
It was very good.
yes.
And her husband, she was suffering from cancer, right? And he became an inspirational speaker. But it is about cancer. It's a tough series to go through. At least it was for me. But he had a saying called flip the switch. So in the morning time, I go through my gratitude, and if I'm not there yet, I tell myself to flip the switch, right? Put the negativity behind you, put the positivity in front of you, and just get up and go. And I'm fortunate. My lovely partner here is someone I get to wake up to every morning. So getting up and having a cup of coffee here in the morning time is worthy of it. And so my day begins.
Get you out of bed.
It gets me out of bed, right? My day begins. And I also know that I've got lots of things to do that day. But the question that you've asked, and I'll ask you back to all of you, is that we're all on borrowed time. The difference is I know mine. I know mine's coming quicker than it should be. The question is, what would you do different? What would you do differently if you knew you only had a day to live, 86,000 seconds to live? Right? And if you measured not in the time of a day, but the fact that, wait a minute, if I thought that every morning when I woke up, I had 86,000 things that I possessed, that I had to spend that day because I couldn't accumulate it, because the next day it starts all over again with 86,000. Would I do things differently? Would I squander it? Would I just throw it out? What would I do with that money? Or what would I do with that? Call it whatever it is. And once you answer that, the follow-on question is, why aren't you doing it already? Right? And that's what it comes down to. And I'll keep pointing back to this group here. They knew me as a person who was just focused on work, right? This notion of these new age teams of intention, gratitude, right? Presence, being in the moment, I didn't embrace in the least bit. I was about work and getting stuff done, right? It wasn't about sitting back and all this, mamby-pamby. And I found out it's not mamby-pamby. This is critical to living, right? Of stopping, being mindful of the moment, embracing what's around you. Because my challenges I have today, I have to find joy now, not in climbing mountains, but in a shared conversation with a friend, right? Well, the other day, my daughter was down and we're having coffee. It was a Sunday and we're just doing the chat stuff. And I stopped for a second. I said, this is what it's about. This is what it's about. Making certain I understand and appreciate, I'm listening, I'm here, I'm for them, I'm present, 100%. I wasn't always that way. And I found joy in that moment. It didn't have to be a big moment, but it's there. Everyone experiences that. You don't have to travel like I have. You all have family, you all have things that are important to you. These are the ways that we can find those moments of joy every day.
I will say, if you wake up and try to figure out why am I here, you'll suffer from paralysis by
Analysis, absolutely.
if you wake up and you say, I'm gonna live today with intent.
Yep.
That makes it a little bit easier.
Surely, that's like, you've heard, so if anyone ever asks you, how do you eat an elephant?
Bite at a time.
Bite by bite,
That's
right?
exactly right.
Right, that's what life's about. How do we carve our life into bite-sized chunks so we can really enjoy it?
So let me ask you a question.
Shoot,
We all know this.
yeah, but why don't we?
Why
live
are
it?
we here?
Right.
Because we don't embrace it, enact it, live it, you know?
No, because unfortunately, we get caught up. And now I'm sounding like some spiritual.
No, but it's true.
Not even that guy, but we get caught up in our daily activities, right? You know, the old saying is, don't fret the small stuff, and by the way, it's all small.
Absolutely.
I can say that with fact,
Amen.
right? It is all small. You know, but it's a mindset shift, flip the switch, right? It's a mind shift. And it only, like you said, Brian, already, it only can come for you, right? So. Back down to what to do.
One thing that sucks, if I could,
Shoot.
my PCP at my last physical exam said, I said, how come you never mention a PSA test? I had a slightly elevated one, probably with my last PCP.
Yeah.
She goes, we don't do that anymore. That's not a recommendation of the, whatever the board is that governs
Right, right.
internists.
Yep.
I said, you're kidding me. With all the prostate cancer guys they have, yeah, it's just not, unless you're symptomatic, they don't really want to check.
Which is ridiculous, right? Because when you first get it, you are asymptomatic. And prostate cancer is a slow growing cancer. So it's not.
I should have mentioned that at the end, but
No,
it's, to me, that it supports everything that you've said in our need to go, maybe try to enact some changes before Congress or.
that's exactly. So the thing is here is I have a couple of letters that I have been sending to our representatives. All right, because there are a few acts in Congress. All right, about PSA screening, about making sure it's part of the insurance program, et cetera, but it's not law yet. And you ask yourself, okay, but the breast cancer side of it's been going on to the 80s, 90s. They've had their act together for so long. What is it with us guys?
Because we don't communicate.
Because we don't communicate, we don't think it's important, we're gonna hide.
What did your doctor say when he said no, that you don't need this right now? How did you reply?
I said, that seems really bizarre to me, and I made a couple of other comments, I don't remember, and she said, well, if you think you want to have it, I will add it to your, well, I was getting blood tests and stuff, she goes, I will add it to your tests, and that's what I gotta do now. But I just thought, it was so important for my other PCP,
Right,
completely not
right,
relevant anymore.
Which your insurance will pay once a year.
right.
It's a simple blood test,
only
which
pay
is
for
The
there.
only, but there's,
They'll
David's
pay
right.
it once, and it's a very expensive test,
Really?
and you can include it in your blood test, but.
Would
once
you
a
pay
year.
for it? If your insurance didn't cover it, would you pay for the test, not knowing what you know now,
I would absolutely, I would have started it when I turned 50,
right?
right?
Just
Because
like-
I would have avoided, well, I can't say that, I could not have avoided, I did everything right.
Yeah.
I
See,
did
this
it.
learning curve is very similar to colon cancer, which you also have your nickname should be Lucky.
Luckiest unlucky guy.
Yeah, but the whole colon cancer thing really ignited, so many people wanted to test that you can't even get a gastroenterologist in Hyannis.
Right.
Because they're booked out like 5 years.
Right.
And, 50 and above, and they're finding all kinds of polyps and tumors and, you know.
I don't know, and that's an odd thing, right, that they're concerned they're gonna find too many problems, and therefore we should stop. But that's the response, right? That's what they talk about in terms of false,
How could we ever afford all that?
Well, and that's why we need to knock on the door to our congresspeople, our senators, and even to the National Health Institute, because they're the ones who do the funding. They're the ones who are sitting back and say, here's another interesting thing. Lung cancer. That is the highest killer
Number one, really?
of everyone, right? Lung cancer only gets less than $100 million of research. Right? Lung cancer only gets less than $100 million of research compared to the great 280 we get for prostate and the 580 they get for breast cancer. There's no rhyme or reason to how this, well, there is a rhyme or reason, right? Rhyme or reason is not based on mortality. It's not based on the amount of people impacted by it. It's based on the voice. Right? Who,
Who your lobbyists are.
well, it's a squeaky wheel, right? It's a squeaky wheel. And I say this with all, well, Santa and Paula know this. My team of people were mostly females, right? There was a reason for it, not because I think they're pretty and I like being with them, it's because they're freaking smart. And they know how to get things done. And they have a network that they bring with them. Not overtly, but it's just part of the nature. And I found that I was more effective as a leader with them on my team than without them. And so when I talk about guys needing to do things, I keep on bringing it back over and say, all right, if I was a woman, how would I approach this? What would I do to create greater synergy amongst guys? Should I have a journaling, every morning, a journaling party where we would all learn how to journal, right? Because that's a great way of expressing yourself. And no one knows about it. It's not like I'm, sharing it with my wife or my kids. I'm just sharing it with myself. But the relief is tremendous in terms of getting it from here and here onto a piece of paper that you can close and put away. A better way of getting it out of your body, right? But I've heard that maybe it's at the starting point. And then when they're doing this, then maybe I might start doing this. And if they start doing this, then we might have some dialogue and we might make some progress. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to start I'm going to start a program that allows guys to get together and journal. You don't have to share anything, but it's like one's doing sketches over at the Catuit Center for Performing Arts, sketching. No one's criticizing anyone who's sketching. We're all part of doing the same thing, trying to learn, develop. So I've taken those things that I've learned so far. I'm trying to see if I can make a change.
So did you write this or is this a boilerplate?
Yeah, both. I wrote it as a boilerplate.
I like it.
Used by you all.
I like it.
So you take my card, you go to my website. And it's there. I'm not selling anything. I'm not trying to push anything. What I'm trying to do is just push awareness. I've done a lot in terms of creating things that you guys can replicate and take on your own. And that's the whole point, right? I'm moving forward.
Didn't think of the stuff at BC, did you?
Sorry?
You didn't think of the stuff at BC.
BC, I had a couple other things in my mind.
But I mean, this is where we're at now.
Yeah. Well, life has a way of doing that to you, doesn't it?
They
Is
sure
there a
does.
prostate, there's like the American Heart Association, is there like an American prostate?
No, there's a prostate cancer foundation. But, the answer is no. The part of the problem we have, prostate cancer thrivers, survivors, or whatever, is that it's very fragmented. And this is where I feel helpless, right? Because I want to do something and I can't find anything, so I'm starting my own. Okay, well, that's really grassroots and, it's grassroots. It's 30 people coming in and, exchanging. I'm not a celebrity.
Well, it's the number 2 killer.
It is.
And you're starting grassroots.
Well, but that's where we are, right? Because we don't have that kind of we don't have that kind of collective group that's pushing an agenda,
A solidarity, yeah.
right? We've got the zero prostate, which I'm involved in. We've got the stand up to cancer. We've got this over here. And you have all these disparate things by themselves are not being successful.
This is another meeting.
It's another meeting.
This is another meeting. It's like,
How do we rally,
yeah.
right? How do we learn?
Like the Jimmy Fund obviously raises a lot of money
Yep.
towards cancer. Do you know where their funds go in terms of what they focus on?
A good question. I hate to say that, I reached out to Mark over at Pan Mass to find out if he had an answer for that perspective. And what guidance he can give me in terms of how do I create greater awareness? You know what he said?
Yeah,
Yeah, I got my own thing. Which is the point. I know you got your own thing, but how do we make it bigger? This is where, now I'm really getting on my philosophical. That wouldn't be a question you would ask. Right? It wouldn't be a question you would ask. You would say, oh, okay, well, how can I do this to bring you into the fold? How do I bring you into my tent? Exactly. That's exactly.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy from a whole other different
Yeah,
things, right?
there's no such thing as a prosthetologist.
Ophthalmologist, yes, but that's not the same thing as a prostate guy. No.
So that's a urologist, right? I mean, what else would it be? Is there a specialist?
Well, so it's a great question, Brian. Great question. And, so you go to a urologist because he's in control of that space. When it comes to the point of being cancerous, he hands you off to over an oncologist. And
Who's
then
a
depending
general
on,
cancer specialist?
pardon?
Who's a general cancer?
Depending on who you get. And there are guys out there that are specialists of prostate.
Uh-huh.
Right? But when you go into the oncology space, then you have different specialists. You've got medical oncologists and radiation oncologists. Right? And so, of course, if you go to the radiation oncologist, what do you think you're gonna get for a solution set? Or if you go to the medical oncologist solution set, right? There's not a point person that you can go to and say, okay, what's my overall program? Because some people may in this room find this surprising, but I am a very forceful advocate for myself. And I've had more than one conversation with doctors about how can they, in their right mind, prescribe this if they haven't talked to my cardiologist, if they haven't talked to my oncologist, if they haven't talked to my PCP, right? Well, what viewpoint do you have? You have a viewpoint of somebody else. And it's not helpful. I do have to tell one story. I'm talking about misidentity. So I'm in just outside of Crested Butte. I was there skiing 3 years ago, and I suffered a heart problem, right? And so I had to go to the trauma center right on the mountain, right? For skiers in terms of
For broken legs.
the broken legs, right? So I showed it, yeah, we can't do that. So they threw me into an ambulance and took me to a hospital an hour away, Gunnison. Kept me overnight, did some studies, and then they had me go talk to a cardiologist. So I'm sitting with the cardiologist. And he's going through stuff and he's talking about stuff, and I'm going, how did this guy know so much about me? Right? Because he had a lot of questions about things that I had already. And I said, well, how do you know this about? Oh, it's on the records here. I said, really? I said, you got my name? Yeah, yeah. My birthday? Yeah, yeah. I said, this is not me. Well, yes, it is. I said, where's the guy live? The guy lived in Gunnison, Colorado. It's like he was going to prescribe based on what this other guy was versus myself, which wouldn't have been good because the guy had some early issues. I could have ended up with a cow's valve as opposed to just a stent, right? So advocating and making certain we're on the same page is important.
I got a suggestion that, you're looking to start a group. The new tower at Cape Cod Hospital, the first 2 floors are gonna be for oncology.
No kidding.
And so they're looking to expand for the Cape population. And the hospital is very receptive to support groups.
Good to know. Thanks, Sharon.
And, I mentioned to Tom already, I mentioned it to the rest of the people, if anyone has a cardiac issue. And I've been involved with Mended Hearts at the hospital. They allow us to put posters up, they allow us to have a meeting room. And what we do, we have trained, including myself, trained volunteers that go into the rooms and meet up with the cardiac patients. And the only person that can do it is someone that has been a cardiac patient themselves or a caregiver.
Yep.
It's like you said, a caregiver, is so important. You know, we see them as important as the next patient, you know.
Can you imagine if a person with prostate cancer knows very little about it, has very little support access, what the caregiver must have? Like virtually nothing, right?
Say it again, Brian.
What is, how many tools does the caregiver have for the husband that has prostate cancer?
Very little,
Very.
because there's no the awareness level is, put it this way, most caregivers, I don't mean, are gonna be female.
Yeah, because most patients are male. Right?
And
Yeah.
therefore, it's not like they can intrinsically inherently know, oh, I know what the cold's like, right? I know what having heart issues is like, right? And therefore I can intuitively work with you. I have no idea what this prostate thing's gonna do to you, right? And-
Why do you keep going to the bathroom?
Yeah, exactly, right? Right? Why do you have, oh, this is even better. We were talking about this, hot flashes, right? I've gone through menopause so many times now, it's hard to describe. I get to the point where I have to take my glasses off because the steam coming out of my eyes is so friggin' bad, it literally condenses.
So you got menopause.
I got menopause, I got a lot of things, but yeah. But to your point, Brian, they don't know enough, and the guy's not gonna share, and there's the problem. How am I gonna give help to someone when they don't, A, want it, two, are going to describe what the real issue is, right? And it's beyond the just, I don't feel good, right? There's the intimacy levels, you know, there's a bunch of other important things that make you feel like a man or a woman, right? It's just a person, right? It's
ED. Hot flashes, like you
Libido.
said,
right.
libido.
Yeah. How are you? Nice seeing you.
Good, nice to meet you too. I was actually talking to the executive director for the health, healthcare sector, and they're actually also doing cancer trials, so it's quite amazing how in a relatively small healthcare centre, there's a lot going on with cancer.
That's
But I have the question is palliative care, so I'm do end of life work and like do with it. Palliative care often is for people think when you are with a terminal illness, but it's also actually for chronic illness.
Right.
And if you don't ask for it in the healthcare system, you're often not offered it. And now you talk about how do you get people together and people talk, that they hopefully should be able to bring a whole team for both physical, mental and spiritual support.
Yeah.
So palliative care is something that you should also consider asking for.
And then, yeah, to your point, it's something that so another point to add to it, because I just had this aha moment maybe 2 or 3 months ago, right? And as you described, palliative care, you kind of equate to end of life, end of life, okay? And I started thinking, should I be waiting that long? Why would I want to wait until I'm almost dying to go and have this kind of environment that is supportive on so many different levels? You know, just because I'm going to palliative care does not mean I'm stepping into the coffin, right? It just means I'm stepping into another environment that I'm gonna get more care and deal with it now. And so there's another education that's gotta take place in terms of how do you get out of this mindset that, oh, wait a minute, you really are giving them, aren't you? You know, you're stepping over here to palliative care, that's one step away from dying, you're giving up. And the fact is, I'm a long way from giving up. I'm trying to pull at every string I can to make my life better in the way that I can in this moment, right? And going to that is what I'm gonna do. Can you help that? Then absolutely. But and I'm gonna take that up in terms of trying to talk and find how we can create better groups for men on this topic.
And
So
it's
thank you.
not just terminal, it is chronic illness.
Yes.
Not chronic illness their entire life. I say have chronic life.
Right,
Still entitled to that.
right, right, but we don't think of it in that context.
Well, it's not often necessarily either, so yeah,
Well, it doesn't mean it's not there.
exactly, you have to advocate.
Exactly.
Fight for it.
Exactly.
So can we talk a little more about that? A chronic illness definitely, as you've talked mostly about, the cancer, and, the research and your journey. The depression, the, emotional, emotions that you go through on a day-to-day basis have to be, well, they are incredible. I'm well aware of what you're going through. And then I've been going through it myself for 9 years, including dying a couple times already and being brought back to this world. Thank you, Jesus.
Right.
So what I'm looking for, because when I'm supporting, and that's what Mended Hearts is all about, it's a support group, and I'm supporting someone that has a chronic illness. And that's what this is all about. Cancer, I don't care if it's cancer, if it's a heart.
Right.
It's a chronic illness, it's not going away.
And it's the, so,
So you gotta get up every day and face it, and like you've alluded to a couple things that you say to yourself, and I just would like to hear
sure, I'm glad you asked the
a little
question.
more.
Yeah, there's a, so don't laugh, I have created a program. Which I call the ARC cycle, right? And it's gonna deal with acceptance. And transformation. So you have to acknowledge that I have this issue. Right, which is not an easy thing to do. And it's not just the issue, so I have to accept that I have cancer. But there's a lot of tangents that fall from that, right? So I accept I have cancer, which means I have to be resilient to know that whatever I do from this point forward is gonna take some energy, it's gonna take effort. It's gonna take change. And so once I get past that first, I've accepted I have cancer, then what does that mean? Well, that means I have to change my life. Well, then I have to go through another series of acceptances. I have to understand uncertainty, right? I mean, I was in the risk management business. My job was to mitigate risk, right? And now I'm confronted with it daily. This is the most mind-blowing thing, it's like, if I wanted to screw somebody up, I'm gonna take what you used to do for a living and make that your full-time problem, right? Of living with uncertainty. And I gotta thank God, I went to this Knowles class, believe it or not, Knowles, right, taught me about uncertainty. Because when you're in the wilderness, Mother Nature, she's got her own game plan.
They don't care.
And she's doing it for different reasons. And that doesn't care. She just doesn't care about you. I mean, I've got other things, I've got, these plants need, rain, or, this thing needs to be turned up, whatever it is, she's gonna do her thing. And so if you're gonna be out there and you wanna be successful out there, you have to embrace the uncertainty, not try to control it. And for me, that was the most impossible thing, right? To say, okay, I'm giving up control. Right? I gotta give my hands away and say, okay. And I'm not a Jesus person. I'm a spiritual person. So I'm giving up to something, right? And then you have to understand that, okay, that's one thing, uncertainty. But now I can't do what I wanted to do. Now I have to accept my limitations. For a guy, the fact that I can't pick up this thing anymore and struggled over here, because that's what I used to do. I was the guy that shoveled the holes, I built the house, I did this, right? Now I have a hard time picking up a 10-pound, bag of flour. So I have to accept that. Not easy to do.
I'll give you an example. So I'm not supposed to be doing what you're talking about. I'm not supposed to be pushing a snow blower. I give the snow blower to Brian. What do I do at the beginning of this season? When on Marketplace, saw one in Osterville there for $200. I said, I gotta get that snow blower, so I have it in my garage.
I tried to sell them back his for $300.
Only a mark
But
of 20 minutes.
it's very hard to give up when things that people say you can't do anymore.
Right.
Oh yeah, you watch me.
Yeah, but you do that, and if you keel over, right? It's like, yeah, that wasn't very
Well,
smart.
what happens a lot, like, you're working really hard doing this presentation, I can tell. You're sucking wind a lot. And you had mentioned that you have fluid. And I'm sure you know, that, plays into
Breathing?
your breathing, big time. So, you know, I mean, that's what you end up doing. You have to give up. You're giving up something because it's so important for you to do this right now.
Yeah.
While you can.
Yeah.
You're sucking wind.
Yeah.
And doing it.
So you get up in the morning,
Yeah, so the difference here, Dave, I'm gonna pick on some words.
Okay.
Words are very important, right? I don't feel like I'm giving up. Right?
Okay,
What I'm doing is I'm accepting.
Yeah.
That I can't do what I used to do. Now, I'm being vulnerable to that, right? And I'm expressing a certain vulnerability. And most people believe that vulnerability is equal to weakness. But in reality, it's strength. If I can be aware enough to accept my limitations and be vulnerable, that I have to rely on my nephew to do the things you're talking about, when I took pride in doing it before, that takes strength. Because the easy thing would be do, not no disrespect, to be do what you're doing, because this is what I feel like I can do. I need to get out there, even though your brain's telling you, if you do that, you're gonna get killed. Right, but you still do it. Because it's ingrained. Strength comes into realizing this is not a sign of weakness. This is good for me, and it gives Troy some things to do when it's snowing out. But that's the part. So acceptance is an everyday event. Acceptance by itself is not sufficient. Because I can be aware of something. It's like, what are dreams? Dreams are plans. If you don't put actions next to them, that's where they remain. You put an action next to it, it becomes an experience. It's no longer a dream. Acceptance leads me to being aware of dreams. But the transformation to go beyond just accepting it, and actually live it, right? To live being vulnerable, live with uncertainty, live with your limitations. That all requires things. It all requires change. That's what I meant earlier about, I had to change my mindset. Because in order for me to be here and still be happy, right? Because that's the airplane. I want to still be happy. I don't want to be, you know, commiserating all the time about where I am. And that all requires, I found this interesting. We all know emotions, right? Emotions like anger, like fear, like sorry. Are emotions that are reactionary, right? We aren't happy just because we're happy when something happens. Yeah, you get acknowledged for doing a good job. I'm happy, that's great, thank you. But an event took place. Or you get fired. You know, now you're sad, you're grieving, someone passes, right? Those are events. There's very few emotions that we have that we choose to have. Joy is one, right? Joy is something you choose. You choose, someone mentioned that they came here to look at these pictures today. They came here to choose for some enjoyment, to get enjoyment out of it. That's why they came, right? And so that's something you choose. So if you think about your life and say, okay, there are things I have to choose a better at, right? I want to choose to be happier more often. I want to choose to be vulnerable, right? I want to choose to be strong. Those are things that we have to take and transform. That's where the transformation comes into play. So it's acknowledging that I got a problem. It's accepting that I will bring it in and do something about it. And then it's the actual transformation, right? It's the actual change that comes from that. Unless those three things are occurring, then you're just going to be in the bed. You're not, you don't have all the things necessary to get you up and doing something. Because I'm not the same guy I was 5 years ago. Not by a long shot. And that's a good thing. And then so we were watching the Big C, and the first episode just saw it is when she goes to this group, right? And I'm looking at the group and I'm going, did they do this on purpose? I mean, there's all the stereotypes you'd expect. There's Mr. Happy, like, this is great, and the other one's is, concerning and wants to get huddled like this. And I'm going, I'm that guy that's happy. I mean, that seems odd because he's taking the approach that this is not gonna bring me down, right? I'm gonna choose to be happy. I'm gonna choose to be joy. I'm gonna take this as a gift.
don't confuse it with denial.
No. There's too many people yep, they think that denial is the river. Well, not something I'm experiencing. And that is,
You can be happy without,
you could be happy and in grief. You can be happy, I'm sorry, wrong word. You can be joyful and in grief. You can be joyful, right, and be fearful. Because those are two different emotions. One you have no control over and one you do. And so you can actually work these two together.
Mhm.
And that's what I find. So in the morning time when I wake up and I'm feeling a little off, I just think about, well, you feel joyful today, right? Okay, and this is what we're gonna do. I want to feel joy. I want to be joyful.
it's a choice.
My husband, who has passed away,
Sorry
was
to hear that.
diagnosed, thank you, was diagnosed with, early onset, memory impairment, which went quite rapidly into Alzheimer's. But I went through all the anger and fear and all of those things and angry at him and, all of those things. And I finally came to a point, and they call this the long goodbye, and it truly, truly is. And I knew that finally, I was accepting that. And I said to myself, this could be a gift. I'm going to really try to find the joy in every day. And believe me, that was a struggle.
Oh, I
At times,
didn't say it was easy.
I could spend hours talking about the other situation, but my husband loved music. And he loved the old songs and everything else. And I always knew that no matter what was going on with him, his anger and his confusion, just sometimes getting him in the car and going for a ride and putting on the oldies,
Change things.
he would start singing and, remembered all of the songs and the words and everything else. And I took him to every concert you can imagine and every outdoor thing, and sometimes it was very embarrassing. But I made that decision that I was gonna find joy. And then when he did pass away, I really felt, not immediately, because of course I went through grief and everything. But I just now have that comfort of knowing that we did find the joy.
Right.
And we did find the joy in taking a walk and looking at the same pictures in the same museums 100 times. But each time it was new to him. And we did find a lot of joy. And I'm so glad that I journaled, because I wrote in that journal my anger and my frustration and so forth. But then I got to the point that I could write at the end of the day, gee, Pete and I had a great day
Great day,
today,
right.
and the simple little joys, the food and the music and the walking, and I too tried to have gratitude about that we were able to do some of those
Right.
things. And it's life is a struggle.
No, it is, but I respect you telling us the story, because I appreciate that. And it points to something. You made a choice to make certain that the last moments he had, no matter how long that goodbye was,
Right.
not only was good for him, it's good for you, because 2 or 3 years later, you're talking about the positive things you
Right.
enjoyed with her, as opposed to the negative parts of that period of time, which are, I suspect, many, but that's not what you're commenting and not remembering. And that makes a huge difference for both parties, right? So, when I'm talking about, you're not just something for the person that's suffering, but it's also the caregiver, and those around. In terms of how we just approach your life normally. Right? And thanks for sharing that. It's a very positive, joy is a funny thing. And I never thought about the context of it today. Pardon?
Choice.
It is a choice. It's a choice. Any other question? Yes.
I would just also actually, you mentioned that you've had twice, but I also say in life, we've done, there's different things, so divorces are death, losing a home, illness, my daughter in her early 20s, full of chronic illness, still does with autoimmune conditions, and she literally after a number of years said, something like the life that I had is now not here, that's died, who I was is gone. And then you go through your grief and loss, and then she says, well, now what? And we kind of in a way rebirth as well, and I think have going through that grief and loss is really important too, because it's that vulnerability.
Yep.
But it's so powerful because there is always
Well, the thing that I found helpful to me, again, I'm not a new age person. I wasn't, I am now. I believe in mindfulness. I believe in a lot of things that we've been talking about in terms of intent and gratitude. And now I'm having a brain fog, a senior moment, just lost my train of thought. What was I just talking about? Sorry, well, it's embarrassing. Mindfulness, joy,
New age spiritualness.
embracing, and I'm trying to come back to your point in terms of, it's not just illness that we need to be mindful of, right? It'll come back, to all those things that are, sorry,
That's,
but it was gonna be a very, very important point.
send it to us.
Yeah, I did. But there are things I do now, and things I do, it's part of life. It just, and it makes it better for some reason. I don't know why. I feel better.
That's great.
That does it for anybody, we all have shitty days. We all have shitty days. And it's our ability to keep on doing this, flip that switch, right? Or you put the negativity back here and bring forth the positivity, because we all have, we have positive stuff in our lives, right? Some maybe a little deeper in terms of you have to get away a lot of crap in order to get there, but we do.
We don't get to choose that we're gonna go out or not, but we do get to choose how to go out.
Absolutely.
Many times.
And the things you do leading up to that point, right?
And if you do wake up with intent, you get hit by a car an hour later, at least you woke up with
So-
intent.
So here, you're making a joke here, but I'm gonna tell you a real life story. So, my first marriage, the person, our priest was my uncle. Right, he was a priest. He had an interesting career. He started off as a Capuchin brother, which is a cloistered practice, and he was over in Belgium, never saw anybody. But he couldn't do it because he's a very extroverted, I mean, he needed people, right? He needed to be a parish priest, no doubt about it, right? And he found his way, ended up being in the Strathmore in Ontario. But he suffered from diabetes and he suffered from heart issues, right? And he was beating them. He was beating them. And he had him under control. And he was also an artist, very creative and stuff like that. But Brian, one day he walks out of his house, going across the street. Probably car hits him, kills him. And it's like, even a God, even one of God's people.
With a
Right?
great message.
Yeah, he beat this, he beat that, but your time's your time. Right? And then there's no way of avoiding that. But if you had, and he did,
But if you live your life a certain way,
exactly, then it doesn't matter when you pass, because you've been doing the best you can every day, right? Every day.
I can say I don't, you know.
So, I'm just spending a lot of time on my legacy aspect, like certain rights, but 30 years from now, some weird book, what's this about, right? Because there's a rap song, but it's really based on an Egyptian oath. And a person dies twice, right? First time is when they actually pass. The second time you die is the last time someone utters your name. So I'm gonna hide my books, so someone has to go and pull them out and read it at least one more time and say my name, so that it'll be 100 years before I really pass.
Time capsule.
Exactly. Any other question? We're a little past our time. Amy's not doing, I don't know if she's here, but I'm not trying to close it down, but I'm being mindful that we're supposed to be done by 2:00. Any other, this has been great. I appreciate the questions, the interaction. This is where I get my enjoyment. This is where I get, what's the word, inspired. So I appreciate your guys asking the questions you have.
Well, if it means anything to you, I'll be taking away a couple of things. And one of which is the illogical aspect of our entire country not really paying that much attention to it.
Right.
I can't get over that statistic.
Right.
Second leading cause of death. You gotta be kidding me. That many people died in car accidents, they banned cars.
Well, we got seatbelts.
Yeah.
Oh, we got, it's right. Then there are things, right? Because it was important.
And
Just for some reason, I had someone say something to me once before. I don't know what it had to do with, if a guy thought it was important, they'd fix it. Right?
yeah. That's true.
And like, so it's our fault. We don't think it's important. Because we aren't crowded. And, you know, let's face it, we could use all of our business reasoning and put in that context, right? And collaborate and do something and create money from it if we have to, if that's our motivator. But there's a lot to be said for that, right? But we don't, because we don't think it's that bad until you're 68. You've got.
I'm more worried about fixing the golf swing. Isn't that funny?
Well, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate your time here.